Imagination is like a faraway, fertile land where we go to plant pictures and ideas in the soil before having the pleasure of watching as unique trees germinate and blossom. When we think of imagination, most of us think of make-believe. We think of fantasy, of Middle-earth, of Narnia, of Westeros perhaps. These immersive realms which act for many of us much like sanctuaries, places we can escape into for an hour or two to get away from the tedium of our own lives. Because unwinding at the end of a long day so often now entails a movie, a game, or Netflix series, we've come to associate the imagination with leisure, with escape, with whimsy. And this has cemented a hard divide in the mind between the serious world of production, material things, and our 9 to 5, with the non-essential world of make-believe, dreams, and the imagination. This is a divide, a duality, which is not just false, but I think destructive. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the essayist, wrote in his paper Poetry and Imagination, "Imagination is not just a talent of some men, but is the health of every man." Now, ignoring the all-pervasive use of gender-exclusive language in the 19th century, Emerson here is making a claim for the faculty of imagination, that somehow our health and our well-being is bound up with it. So perhaps at the most superficial level, like I've mentioned, imagination can offer us escapism, which can be critical. I'm not dismissing that for one moment. I think for many, imaginary worlds of someone else's making really do offer relief from what would otherwise be an unbearable existence. However, this is just scratching the surface as to where imagination can take us. And yet, are the cogs and gears not turning? Innovation is another one of those extolled benefits of the imagination, and it's particularly emphasized by people operating from within that dualistic paradigm. Those interested in the benefits to be had in the material world, the money to be made. Think corporate America. And of course, it's not untrue. Every clever piece of technology you've ever seen had its origins within someone's imagination. But again, treating the imagination in this way does it a great disservice. Our imagination cannot be compartmentalized in this way. You can't simply throw slices of time at it and then subject that time spent to a cost-benefit analysis to see if it was worthwhile in the end. The benefits may not even be quantifiable, as indeed the most important things in life rarely are quantifiable. Our overall awareness, consciousness, and our faculty of imagination has diminished. This is a consequence of what? Industrialization? Urbanization? And perhaps the most pernicious of all, our capitulation to the ticking clock. We are capable, it seems, of a broad range of conscious states, but like a tight rubber band, the modern world has restricted us to 2 or 3 states in the middle. States that we all ordinarily occupy, these states which constitute what we might call consensus reality. This narrowing of consciousness went with our exile from nature, this deep detachment that we all feel from the rhythms of nature, nature which is slower and more intentional. Think of the gradual changing of the seasons. But now, in this world of ours, everything seems to be so frenetic. How can anyone slow down and just occupy the moment? It seems more difficult now than ever. Because there's always a deadline, there's always a need to perform, there's always expectations to be met, and the ticking clock is going to tell you when. Our imagination suffers then because our imagination requires latitude. It requires space to function, to blossom. It requires accessing that broader range of conscious states. And in the modern world, in the way that it operates, such investigation seems to be just discouraged. Partly, I think, because these seldomly accessed conscious states go hand in hand with differing perceptions of time. And in the West, in the 21st century, it is a requisite a precondition that we all hold so-called objective time as inviolable. We all know, we all experience different activities subjectively lasting for different durations. And this, I think, actually causes for us some deep anxiety. We fear losing ourselves to these altered states of consciousness. We fear losing our grip on clock time. And in so doing, we fear failing to meet our obligations to this world we've been thrust into. We're obliged to, at all times, therefore, keep half an eye open on the ticking clock. Even our enjoyment of movies, I feel, can be explained through these observations. Movies serve as escapism, but at the same time they assuage our anxiety concerning time. Why? Well, a movie's duration is going to be experienced variably, of course, depending upon our state of mind, whether we're enthralled or bored or whatever. But its length, in terms of clock time, is never going to change. So you can relax. For that allotted time, whatever it is, you can just go with it. Although a movie or poetry or sublime art may draw back the curtain for us and invoke a sense of something larger, suggest greater possibilities, it's only ever an invitation to us. We must ourselves venture forth into that interior, into our own imaginations. To do this, we need to reclaim our primordial ancestors' relationship to time. This will almost certainly require a reorientation of priorities, a new awareness of those things in our lives that once seemed so important. And I think nature can serve us in this capacity to put the drama of our lives into perspective. For nature causes our lives to show up as the absurd horror show that it often is for many people, a game in which we're conditioned to tether ourselves to facile matters. But with the larger picture, perhaps that does make us free to enter a deeper kind of being in this world, in which we can invoke the air, the earth, the sky, and these internal agonies, and use them, these forces, to compel us into our own worlds of exploration, imagination. It's also worth considering God in relation to all this. The conception of God is sometimes thought of as infinite mind or pure consciousness. And in this respect, is our imagination not somewhat like a window that opens us to this elevated state, a higher divine reality, a window that reunites this individual subject to that great totality, to that divinity, or to this world of nature? When we are using our imagination, it seems we're actualizing our divine potency or our divine identity. And that is surely life, the health of every man. And when our imagination is opened to us in this way, even the very seat of reality seems to shift from being something outside of the self, the material, mechanistic world of things out there, the world of people's myopic concerns or our own 9 to 5, to our own frame upon things, the range of conscious states that we can experience, our own imagined worlds. But this interior realm, our own experience, also in turn colors and shapes our perception of the apparent exterior, which we can now see with new eyes, new sight. Imagination, then, is a lot like an extension of vision, for all is made more vivid. It's no longer that things are just passively accepted as if we're skating across the surface of things. Rather, we're bound up with it all, co-creators of all we perceive. For what it is becomes a secondary question to what it means. Because those are the questions of our interiority. And so we cannot help but be caught up in the questions of meaning. Take a tree, for instance. It shows up to us, not as a mere object in a world of matter, but an entity of possibility, capable of populating our interiority with an infinitude of possibilities. Through the imagination, seeking the meaning of things, of ideas, of life even, is given a new sort of energy, it's legitimized, it's made once more a worthwhile pursuit.